What's up guys, Dirk here from intelligentcryptocurrency.com, and in today's video I want to break down why I think Bitcoin has potential to go to $100,000 per Bitcoin and even beyond. Now I know this sounds absolutely crazy as Bitcoin right now is maybe trading at about 12,000 US dollars and the all-time high was just shy of $20,000, but I think it's possible that it's going to go to 100,000 and maybe even much further. So we're going to look into that. If you are new to the channel, then I basically talk about all things cryptocurrency, and I try and share insights and educational materials about cryptocurrency as much as possible, rather than just reading news stories and things like that. So I really just try and share the fundamentals and the reasons why I think Bitcoin and crypto is so great, and how you can potentially make really big profits. Because during the last bull run in 2016, 2017, it was possible to turn small amounts of hundreds of dollars or even a few $1,000s into literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think that potential is here right now. I think we are in a new bull market cycle, and I just want to share with you as much as possible. So if you like that kind of thing, click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell after you do, and then you'll get future updates. Now, just before we get started, also, I'm running a competition every single video. If the video gets more than 50 likes, 50, leave a comment below, smash the like button. I give away $50 in Ethereum to a random commenter just to keep it fun, to get the engagement up and to get the video to more people. So make sure you smash the like button and leave a comment below if you do want to participate in that. So I've got quite a few things prepared, and I want to run through this and just break down all the different arguments and contributing factors that I think could send Bitcoin to $100,000. Now, of course, I am not a financial advisor. This is purely my own opinion for educational purposes only, so do keep that in mind. But let's look at all these things. I'm going to back this up with some articles and things like that. But let's just run through all the various points first real quick. So, firstly, we have to understand Bitcoin is the most scarce asset that there is. There is a maximum supply of 21 million Bitcoin. That's all there will ever be, and that supply will only be realized by about the year 2140. Right now, it's far less than that. It's about 17 point something million at the moment. Okay, and we actually know the circulating supply, and we know the supply cuts. We know exactly how much Bitcoin is being produced every single block, every 10 minutes, every single day. We know how much Bitcoin is being made, and we know that every 4 years the supply of Bitcoin is going to be cut in half every single 4 years going forward until all of the Bitcoin has been mined. Okay, so we know that. Secondly, Bitcoin has the largest computer network in the world supporting it. Okay, it literally has such a huge hash power. It's the most secure network because of this global distributed computer power behind it, making it incredibly secure. Bitcoin is global. Like I said, it's all around the world. You can send it all around the world, anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's also censorship resistant, so there's no single entity that controls Bitcoin. There's no third party that can block it or can delete it or do whatever. Okay, it's global, it's distributed, it's peer-to-peer. Very important. It's unconfiscatable, which I think plays a very big role into people going to be buying into Bitcoin, given the nature of how things are going in the world, especially this year and going forward. You know, we don't know what's happening anymore. We don't know what's secure. We don't know what's certain. With Bitcoin, you have full control over your own Bitcoin, and nobody can take it from you unless, of course, by force, or, you know, if they hack your private key, if you do something stupid with it, like leave your private key on your desktop or in your Evernotes or something like that. Do not ever do that. But the unconfiscatable nature of it makes it very interesting, even compared to gold and silver, which have traditionally been stores of wealth throughout uncertain times. You know, the problem with gold and silver is it's still confiscatable. It's big, it's bulky, it's heavy. You have to store it somewhere. If you keep it in a house or a safe, you know, thieves can break in, they can steal it. If you carry it with you, you know, if you go through an airport or a checkpoint or something like that, people with guns can take it off you. But with Bitcoin, it's not a physical thing. You can literally keep your Bitcoin in your mind. You can memorize your 12-word or your 24-word seed phrase and keep millions of dollars in your mind, right? That's what you can do with Bitcoin, and that is the power of it. And I think that is going to play a very important role in the years going forward, where we don't know what's certain anymore. Possessions of physical stuff can get stolen. Bitcoin is probably one of the only things that can't be taken from you very easily because it's not a physical thing. And that is very, very important. Okay. Besides that, of course, it's transportable, it's divisible, it's fungible, all of the properties of money, right? So, even you keep your money in gold, right? How are you going to take that with you? Sure, you can take $1,000 worth of gold with you, or 10,000, maybe 50,000. But anything more than that, it becomes bulky, it becomes heavy. How are you going to transport that? You can't. With Bitcoin, you can't, right? Bitcoin is incredibly divisible. It goes to 100 million Satoshis in a single Bitcoin, right? So it's massive. And that's very important too. Again, compared to gold, if you're going to pay for a piece of bread, how are you going to pay for that with a 1 ounce gold coin? You can't. And how are you going to cut off like a crumb of gold? You can't, right? With Bitcoin, you can. It's very, very easy. It's fungible also, means one Bitcoin can be interchanged with any other Bitcoin. It's an important property of money. Then we're looking at the infrastructure and compliance improvements, which basically over the last few years, that has made massive, massive progress. We have now custodial services. We have insurance on deposits and on crypto. Bitcoin was actually recognized as money by a federal court in the US. It's also recently came out that banks are allowed to provide crypto custody services to their customers in the US. Okay, so this is a big, big thing, of course, because before, large investors might have been hesitant, right? There was no insurance on it. There was no one who could hold it on their behalf. There was much more risk involved. But now with these changes, it becomes much easier, much more safe, and much more legal, where even before maybe it was legal, but, there's always that uncertainty about it might not, there's regulatory problems, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of that stuff has made massive, massive progress, which allows for much larger investors, hedge funds, family offices, all those kind of huge capital intensive entities to be able to actually put their money into Bitcoin in a safe and compliant way. Hedge funds and bigger investors, like I just said, they are also now warming up to the idea of Bitcoin. A big one of that is Paul Tudor Jones, billionaire hedge fund owner. He actually recently said he's betting 1% of his assets on Bitcoin. So that is huge. I mean, if you have billions of dollars and you're putting 1% in Bitcoin, imagine all the hedge funds in the world start doing that. All the rich people in the world start doing that. It's going to be very, very big. Another big issue that I think is going to drive a lot of capital into Bitcoin is actually the financial instability, the uncertainty about solvency of banks and all that kind of stuff. And people are starting to warm up to this idea like, hey, interest rates are starting to go negative. Soon you're going to have to start paying money just to keep your money in a bank. The next point that's also going to be a big one is inflation. There's massive, massive money printing. So the fiat currency that you hold in a bank is at risk, not only from inflation, but also potentially from insolvency. Because, and I'm going to show you some of this stuff in a second, renters aren't paying rent, mortgage owners aren't paying their mortgages, which means that the banks who have all these loans outstanding are getting defaulted on. The banks are at a real risk. So if anything happens, and in certain places in the world, in Europe, for example, in Australia, for example, there's actually bail-in laws, which means that if there's a economic crisis severe enough, the banks could actually take depositors' money, your money that you have in a bank, they could actually take it and take 10, 20, 30%, however much they want, and say, sorry, it was an emergency, your money is now gone. The laws are there, go and look it up. That's 100% fact. It actually also happened already in the 2008 crisis in Cyprus. I actually personally know someone who lost 50% of their savings they had in a bank, just gone like that because of the crisis. And in my opinion, it is likely to happen again at some point over the next few years. So as people are starting to realize more of this, they start to think, well, hey, maybe this is risky keeping my fiat, my savings in a bank, and maybe I'm just going to take control of my money in a scarce asset and actually put something in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies to safeguard my wealth. And if there's enough people in the world who all start thinking that way, that is a huge amount of money that can flow into Bitcoin and crypto. And what do you think that's going to do to the price of something that is already incredibly, incredibly scarce? And that is a low market cap, right? So that could be huge. Then, like I said, inflation, that's a big issue. You can see it. Go look at the headlines. Trillions and trillions and trillions are being printed all around the world. There's no limit to this. I'm going to show you some articles, but you already know this, right? This year alone, in 2020, there has been more stimulus created, quantitative easing, whatever you want to call it. Trillions of dollars have been created out of thin air by central banks around the world. And what do you think this does to the value of your purchasing power? It decreases your purchasing power. So I've said this multiple times. You're going to keep the same nominal amount. If you have $100,000, you're going to keep that same $100,000. But instead of it being able to buy you a brand new Mercedes right now, it might be able to buy you, a secondhand Toyota in a year from now. And it might be able to buy you a used bicycle, in a year after that. That's what happens. The purchasing power becomes nothing. We've seen it before in history. Venezuela, Argentina, Lebanon, Turkey, Zimbabwe, right? Where people are literally carrying wheelbarrows full of paper currency because it's absolutely worthless. And that's what's basically busy happening in the world to our currencies right now, to the dollar, to the euro, to the pound, to the Australian dollar. All of this is just being devalued at a massive rate. And as people start to become aware of this, what is a hedge against inflation? Well, gold and silver have traditionally been throughout the ages, but now we have something that is Bitcoin, which, well, like I just explained, has actually even better qualities for money than gold and silver in many ways, in terms of it's more transportable, it's more divisible, it's more fungible, it's censorship resistant, it's unconfiscatable, and it's actually scarce. It's more scarce than gold because we don't actually know how much gold there still is in the ground, in the oceans, or anything like that. So it's still a bit uncertain, right? Compared to Bitcoin, where we actually know what the max supply cap will ever be. We know all those details. So it's actually more scarce than gold. And then, of course, additionally, we have the regular 4-year Bitcoin cycles that have played a role. We recently had the third Bitcoin halving in May this year in 2020. And if you look at just the past 2 cycles, if that's anything to go by, the first cycle created the peak of over $1,000 in Bitcoin. The second cycle created a peak of almost $20,000 in Bitcoin. So even just based on those cycles alone, without adding in any of the inflation risks and the bank insolvency uncertainty and all that kind of stuff, right? Even just looking at the cycle, it's just very possible based on that cycle alone that Bitcoin could reach $100,000 at a peak of this cycle. And of course, the fact that it is still a very relatively tiny market cap. Bitcoin, all the cryptocurrencies combined at this point, are only a market cap of 360 billion. Okay, that is tiny. The market cap of gold is like 7 or 8 trillion. So let's go look at some articles just to back this up, and then I can give you a bit of a conclusion. But basically, this is it. This is why I think that Bitcoin could go to $100,000 and even much more as global fiat value, the purchasing power, just continues to decrease because they keep printing money. Bank insolvency risk, as there starts to become more issues with banks, people are going to start putting money into crypto, I believe, or at least a percentage of it. That's what I would do. That's what I think a lot of people that I know are doing, right? And like I said, Bitcoin is scarce. There's only 21 million. There's 8 billion people in the world. I personally know people who own more than 1 Bitcoin, who own more than 10 Bitcoin already. So the actual availability of a Bitcoin is very scarce. And as soon as people start to realize this and start to buy more, the price is just going to skyrocket, right? So let's head over here. CoinGecko, you can see over here, the total market cap is 363 billion. That's all the cryptocurrencies combined. The total market cap of Bitcoin only is 215 billion, right? So that's very tiny. Like I said, gold has a market cap of 7 or 8 trillion, okay? So for this to 10x is still very reasonable. Imagine all the cryptos only go to 3.6 trillion, right? It's still half the market cap of gold. And what do you think that would do to the prices of not only Bitcoin, but also many of these other cryptocurrencies that could probably end up outperforming Bitcoin by a large margin? So if Bitcoin is going to go 10x to 100K, cryptos like Ethereum and even the lower altcoins, I think, are going to way outperform that and do even larger multiples. And that's what's very interesting. So if you want to learn more about crypto and altcoins and the potential of all those things, I do have a crypto education community. I've got courses on all of it. I write a newsletter. I've got a private chat community where you get access to myself and members all around the world. If you want to know more about that, just check out the first link in the description or go to intelligentcryptocurrency.com. It is probably the best place, in my opinion. Of course, I created it, but I created it for that reason, to help people understand crypto and have the best possible chance of success and have a community of people who have your back and who help you and explain stuff to you. So if you want to learn more about that, go check it out. It's really worth it. And, it's pretty much a no-brainer. But getting back to this now. Okay. So like I said, I've shown this before, billionaire Tudor Jones, my bet is that Bitcoin will be the best hedge against inflation. Very, very cool. He's a multi-billionaire. You can go and Google him if you want. And you can say Bitcoin reminds him of gold in the 1970s, maybe the best hedge against inflation. And basically, he says he's putting 1% of his assets in Bitcoin. He actually put them in Bitcoin futures, but basically he's still exposed to the price of Bitcoin. So either way, if we look just over here, so the hedge fund capital in 2020 has a $3.3 trillion value globally. And that's just the hedge funds. We're not counting in the family offices, the private millionaires and billionaires of the world. So imagine even only 1% of this flows into Bitcoin, right? That is $33 billion if 1% of this would flow into crypto. Now, 33 billion in real money is not the same as 33 billion in market cap. I don't know exactly what the real market cap is. Some people say it's 10x, some people say it's 20x, some people say it's 30x. So basically 33 billion in real money could actually be anywhere between 300 billion and $1 trillion worth of market cap if that were to flow into Bitcoin, right? So that could be huge. That's just one of the factors that could contribute to 100K Bitcoin. You can see over here, this is what I'm talking about. The inflation risk is real. The money printing is insane. Okay, you can see over here, approved more than 3 trillion. This was on June 4th. This is what happened to it. A $3 trillion stimulus. Over here, again, this was in July. Bad word, stimulus package to exceed 6 trillion. Over here, the Fed announces unlimited QE, sets up new lending programs. The Bank of England offers unlimited QE, quantitative easing. So basically they're saying they're just going to keep printing money for eternity. And it's just going to accelerate and more and more and more and more. And basically that means that your savings in fiat currency just get less and less and less. The price of goods is going to keep going up and up and up. And the price of real assets that protect against inflation are going to keep up and are going to go up. So property, for example, probably stocks also. That's why we're seeing the stock market go at an all-time high or near the all-time high. Why the whole world is shut down? Simply because all this money that's being created, or currency should I say, that's being created has to go somewhere. And I think a lot of it is just flowing into the stock markets, pumping up the stock market. So it looks like everything is great, but it is really not. Okay, it's all an illusion. Things are really, really bad right now. So yeah, gold, silver. Why do you think gold is at an all-time high right now? Why do you think silver is skyrocketing? Why do you think crypto has moved up and is now trading at $12,000 for a Bitcoin, right? That's where money goes to protect against inflation. So again, this is going to be a huge contributing factor, in my opinion, why Bitcoin could go to $100,000 a Bitcoin. But if this continues and it gets really bad and fiat currency really collapses, maybe one day Bitcoin might be worth 200,000, 500,000, maybe $1 million per Bitcoin. The question you got to ask yourself is, when one Bitcoin would be worth $1 million, what is the price, or what does $1 million buy you, right? If we are in a place where there's hyperinflation or fiat currencies have collapsed and $1 million, it costs you $10,000 to buy a Big Mac hamburger. What does that mean, right? So that's why there's some people even saying, like, the whole point of Bitcoin is you're not going to trade it out for fiat anymore. In the future, people are just going to use Bitcoin as money, right? And whether or not that's going to be true, I don't know. All right, we'll have to see. That makes for a whole different video. There's lots of reasons why Bitcoin is still difficult to use, because it's slow and it's the fees are high and that kind of stuff, which is fine for larger transactions, but for everyday stuff where you buy a cup of coffee and that kind of stuff, the transaction fee might end up costing more than the actual coffee. So practically, that's still not quite where it wants to be. But that's, again, like I said, a topic for another video. 32% of households in the US missed their July housing payments, right? That's huge. That's a third. 1 out of 3 missed their July housing payments. Now, of course, if renters are not paying their house payments, then the house owners who have a mortgage on the house can't make the payments to the bank. So you can see over here, 4.3 million homeowners missed their mortgage payments last month, and this was in June 2020, right? So again, that brings me to the risk of bank insolvency, like I talked about. There's all these things happening. Renters, and obviously, people have lost their jobs, they aren't getting income. The stimulus seems to have ended, Who knows if they're going to start that up again? But basically, they can't pay their rent. The house owners who have the mortgage don't pay their mortgage, which means the bank has massive defaults, right? And not just with mortgages, but what about business loans? All those businesses that have closed that can't pay, that are all going to default. What about car loans? What about all these outstanding debts that can't be paid back to the banks, which then makes you think, well, are the banks going to be insolvent? They're going to implode, right? What's going to happen to money? So as people start to become aware of this, they might start to think, hey, it's actually not such a good idea keeping my money in a bank because of the insolvency risk, because of the negative interest rate, because of the devaluing fiat currency. And then, they might take a percentage of their money and start putting it into Bitcoin and crypto. And I think a lot of the younger generations, the millennials and lower, are already doing this to some degree. But I think the older generations will also start to catch on to this and actually realize, hey, I might actually need to buy a Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoin or whatever the case is, or put a few percent of my net worth into Bitcoin just as a hedge against what the heck is all happening in the world. Now, over here, another one, subprime auto loans explode. So you can see here, 90 days delinquent auto loans in billions of dollars. And this was in Q4 2019. I wish I could see where it is right now. There's probably charts out there. I haven't been able to find one. But look how this has been going. So that's just another factor. It's mortgage delinquencies, it's auto loan delinquencies, small business loans, all of those that are being defaulted on. And eventually, who does that all go back to? It goes back to the banks, and that increases their risk for insolvency, and it contributes to the factor of like, hey, people are going to start seeing this. Maybe I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. Enough people do that. What do you think that's going to do to the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? Again, gold over here, all-time high. It's never been this high ever. Okay, $2,034. It's literally over the level of the 2011 peak when things were crazy already. And I think it's just getting started. Okay, we could potentially see gold going to thousands of dollars. Some people even talking about gold being $10,000 an ounce in the future, which is possible. Again, if the value of the currency, if the purchasing power devalues because of all these central banks printing up trillions and trillions, devaluing the currency even more, right? So money is flowing into gold, silver, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, right? Same with silver. We can see over here, silver closed at just over $28. Now that's not near its all-time high, which was about $50, but eventually, silver could potentially get there. I mean, if we're looking at gold at $5,000 an ounce, which might be possible, and we're looking at a gold-silver ratio of perhaps even 10, which is low, but it's possible. That means silver could potentially go to $500 an ounce. Again, I'm not sure if that will ever happen, but there's people who I follow who talk about this kind of stuff, and it might be possible. But even $100 silver is not too crazy to imagine, right? So coming back to the mind map, all the different points over here just make me think I think there's a really high chance that this is actually going to happen, and that over the next couple of years, Bitcoin is actually going to reach $100,000 per Bitcoin. The question is, of course, what is the value of the dollar going to be? What is $100,000 going to buy you? Is there going to be hyperinflation? All that kind of stuff, right? But all these factors together really point to, I think, a high chance of Bitcoin actually reaching this level and potentially even higher. And this is why I think that Bitcoin is a really good hedge against not only inflation, but just against all the nonsense that's happening in the world, all the chaos, all the craziness, okay? And I think the two most important reasons why a person should own Bitcoin is, first of all, the hedge against inflation, but secondly, the fact that it is unconfiscatable. And if things continue on the trajectory that they're at right now, where there's going to be more freedoms taken away, there's going to be stricter laws, stricter rules, everything like that, the kind of last asset standing, which is truly unconfiscatable, is Bitcoin. And as more people start to realize that, and as the world continues down this path and things get worse, more and more people are going to catch on, and they're going to end up buying Bitcoin. And I think actually, and this brings me into the different altcoins, is that people might actually end up going for more private cryptocurrencies like Monero, for example, which is just, it's just more of a level of protection, put it that way, because Bitcoin is not private, okay? Everything is public. open source. All the transactions are permanent on a ledger, available for tracking, and everything can be tracked. Okay, so while it is unconfiscatable, it can still be tracked, and it's not anonymous. I don't think personally that anything digital is ever 100% anonymous, but the most private cryptocurrency available right now is Monero. And Jeff Berwick from the Dollar Vigilante, he talks about this quite a bit, and he thinks Monero is going to be huge. I've seen some other people talk about Monero and making crazy price projections of $20,000, $50,000 per Monero. Who knows if that's ever going to end up working out? But I think there's a very good argument also for Monero to go up. But again, like I said, inflation and the fact that it's unconfiscatable is going to be very, very important for cryptocurrencies, because everything else can be confiscated. Your stocks can be confiscated. Your bank, the money in your bank can be confiscated. Your property can be confiscated. Gold and silver can be confiscated. Bitcoin, as a last resort, you can still keep it in your head. You can memorize your 12 to 24 word seed phrase and keep it in your head. And of course, under force or under threat, or someone points a gun at you or something like that, they can force you to give it up. But it is the most unconfiscatable asset, I think, that is out there. So these are all my arguments for Bitcoin going to $100,000, presented with the evidence. Personally, I know I'm making a bet on Bitcoin. I think there's a very high chance that Bitcoin is going to go up, and it's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against the chaos in the world, and it is a way to truly hang on to some of your wealth that could potentially end up growing a lot more. And like I said, Bitcoin, I think, has the potential to go to $100,000 and more. But if Bitcoin goes to $100,000, what is that going to do for cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and all the hundreds of other ones that are out there that could potentially outperform Bitcoin by a factor of many, many multiples, right? So if Bitcoin does 10x, maybe Ethereum could do 20x or 50x. Maybe there's other coins that can do 100x, right? So again, like I said, I do have a complete program. I have courses, a newsletter. I have a community where you get access to me and other members. If you want to learn more about that, go and click the first link in the description, or you can go and check it out and sign up at intelligentcryptocurrency.com. So thanks for watching. Please, if you do enjoy this content, consider subscribing to the channel below and click the notification bell. And remember, there is a contest going on, so smash the like button, leave a comment. If this video gets over 50 likes, I will randomly select a commenter and give $50 in Ethereum. And I'm actually going to take that a step further. For every 50 likes, 50 likes, I'm going to add $50 in Ethereum. So if it gets 100 likes, I'm going to give away 2 times $50. If it gets 150 likes, I'm going to give 3 times $50 to a random commenter. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you. Let's see in the next few years that we can look back on this video and see Bitcoin at $100,000. It would be absolutely fantastic. And I actually personally think that there is a high chance that this will actually happen. Hashtag not financial advice. Peace.